friends, welcome back to our channel. So in today's session we'll discuss about one more important topic in Dbms, that is keys and different types of keys used in Dbms. So first let us see the key. What is meant by a key? So keys in Dbms. First let us see about the key. What is a key? So we know that in the relational database, so the data is represented in terms of rows and columns. So here the rows are considered as a tuples and the column is considered as a attributes. So a key is an attribute or set of attributes That means it may be a single column or a multiple columns. To identify rows uniquely. So without any repetition, in order to identify the rows, in order to get the rows, okay, from the table. So this attribute or a set of attributes is called the key. So different types of keys available in Dbms. So first one is a super key. Second one, candidate key. Primary key. Foreign key. Alternate key, unique key, composite key. So these are the different categories of keys which we are going to use in our relational database system, right? So super key, candidate key, primary key, foreign key, alternate key, unique key and a composite key. Now we'll take one example. So let us have one table, and from the table we'll identify these keys. So what is exactly the super key, what is exactly the candidate keys, what are the primary keys, and all these things we'll identify in that particular table, right? So let us see the example. So let us take this example, the employee table. So in this employee table, let us assume that the table consists of the following attributes: the ID, employee name, some employee identification, that is a Aadhaar or SSN, whatever it may be, employee salary, employee contact, the phone number, and employee email, right? So among this table, let us consider the 4 rows. We are having some 4 rows. Now let us consider the super key. So what is a super key? So a super key is a key or a set of, is an attribute or a set of attributes that identify the rows uniquely. So let us take this one. So if you consider employee ID, so you can see employee ID is a unique. Okay, employee ID is a unique. There is no repetition. So we can identify the complete row with the help of employee ID. So the employee ID itself can be treated as a super key. And the second, with the help of employee name. So you can observe employee name, 2 persons shares the same name, Hari. So by using the employee name, we can't get the details of an employee uniquely, right? If you are trying to retrieve the data of a name Hari, we will get 2 records. So with the single employee name, we can't identify the rows uniquely. Coming to the employee Aadhaar. So every person will be having a unique identity, right? So by using this employee Aadhaar, we can get the details of a student uniquely, because employee Aadhaar or employee identification, the identification given by the government will not be shared among multiple people, right? So every person will be having a unique ID. So by using the employee Aadhaar also, we can get the data. We can derive the other attributes of a row. So this can also be the super key. Similarly, employee salary. Again, you can have salary. Two persons can have the same salary. Multiple persons can share the same salary. So we can't consider this one singly. Okay. And employee contact. So we can get the details of an employee based upon the contact, because it is also given uniquely. But it's not mandatory to that every person have the contact number, right? So practically it's not possible, because nowadays everyone will be having the phone number, right? So but they might be entered in the table, or they might not be entered in the table. So based upon the employee contact also, we can't get the details of a employee. Coming to the employee email, the same thing. So email is also unique, but it's not mandatory that every person should have the email. Okay, so we can consider that employee email as singly to identify the complete rows. Now we can give the combinations along with the employee ID. We can have the employee name. Based upon these two, we can retrieve the data. So the third one, employee ID and employee name. So this is one category. So one key, set of attributes. Next, employee ID with an other. Employee ID with an other. So you can give the combination also. So employee ID with employee other. Employee ID with employee salary. Employee ID along with employee salary. Employee ID with employee contact. Yes, we can get the data. Employee ID with employee contact. Similarly, employee ID with employee email. Yes. Employee ID with employee name and employee other. Employee ID with employee name and employee salary. So like that, every combination with this unique identity can be considered as a super key. So that means it is a superset of all the keys. So from this super key, we will identify all the remaining keys. Right? So that's why super key is a superset of all the keys. Right? So all the combinations to identify the rows uniquely comes under this super key. So it can be a single key or a set of keys. Single key or a set of keys. So we can give any combination which gives the data, which derives the data uniquely from the table, will be considered as a super key. So in this table, there will be a lot of super keys. Now, from this super key, we have to find out the candidate key. Right? So the second type of key is a candidate key. Candidate key. So in order to identify the candidate key, and these keys are also identified from the super keys. So here the candidate keys are minimal set of super key, can be considered as a candidate key. What is the minimal set? Employee ID. Okay, so from this table, employee ID, comma, employee other, employee other, and here employee ID and employee name. So already we have given employee ID, so you should avoid this one. And employee ID and employee other, we have already given this one, you can ignore. Employee ID, employee salary, ignore. Employee ID, employee contact, ignore. So we have to consider only the minimal set from the super key without any repetition. It's called the candidate key. So in this example, we'll be having only two candidate keys, that is employee ID and employee other. Okay, other than this, we don't have any candidate keys from this super key. So from the super key itself, we have to identify the candidate key. So candidate key means a minimal set of a super key. So minimal set means minimum combination. Okay, so first we have to consider a single key. After that we can go with the combination of keys. That means a set of 2 keys, set of 3 keys, set of 4 keys, set of 5 keys, etc. But it should not be available in this particular candidate key. So whatever the pairs we have written in super key associated with this particular employee ID will not be accepted as a candidate key. Similarly, the pairs in the super key where this particular employee author is associated will not be considered, because these two are already considered as a candidate key. So that's why we call it as a minimal set of a super key. Minimal set of a super key. So this is the candidate key. The next one is primary key. Primary key. So primary key means a key, that means it can be a normal attribute, a single attribute, or a multiple attributes which can identify the rows uniquely, right, without any redundancy. So that means we are having some candidate keys. Among these candidate keys, you can select one as a primary key. Any candidate key can be considered as a primary key. So here we are having a 2 candidate keys. So that means employee ID and employee Aadhaar, right? So among these two, we can consider any one as a primary key. So you can consider employee ID as a primary key. You can consider employee Aadhaar as a primary key. Or you can also consider the combinations. If any combinations are there in the candidate key, we can also identify those combinations also, right? So primary key, it can be any key from candidate keys. Candidate keys, right? So that must be employee ID or employee identification, right? Let it be some Aadhaar card or voter card. Okay, so voter card is also unique identification. So we can consider that also as a candidate key and the primary key. Now, if you consider this employee ID, okay, if you consider that employee ID, so what are the another keys in the candidate key will be considered as a alternate keys. So our next one is alternate keys. The next one is alternate keys. So except the primary key, all the keys available in candidate key will be considered as a alternate keys. So all candidate keys except primary key. All the candidate keys except primary key will be considered as a alternate keys. That means in this example, if you consider employee ID as a primary key, you can consider employee Aadhaar as an alternate key. If you consider employee Aadhaar as a primary key, you can consider employee ID as an alternate key. So whatever the keys available in candidate keys will be considered as an alternate keys except the primary key, because among those candidate keys we are selecting one key as a primary key. So automatically the remaining keys will be alternate keys. Okay, and the last one is the next one is a unique key. Okay, I will erase this one. Unique key. So unique key means it is also similar to our primary key, but it can have the null character. It can accept the null character. So one constraint for this primary key is it should not be not null. The value should not null, and also it should not be updated. It should not be updated, right? So once you give the Aadhaar number or employee ID, so in future it will not be changed. The number will not be changed. right? Such type of attribute we have to consider it as a primary key, and it should not be given as a null. It should not be given as a null. So there should be an employee ID and there should be an employee Aadhaar number. And similarly, unique key is similar to primary key. Similar to primary key, having null. So you can observe here employee contact. So every person will be having a unique contact, but there is a possibility to have the null. So that's why we should not consider this as a primary key. So this will comes under the unique key. Similarly, employee email is also unique. Okay, employee email is also unique because every person will be having a different email ID. So one email ID cannot be shared among different people. So it will be the unique identity for the row. But here also it accepts the null value. So this will comes under the unique key. So in this example, employee contact and employee email, both will comes under this unique keys. So both we can identify the complete records with the help of either contact or email, but it will also accept a null character. But the property of primary key is it should not have the null value. It should not have the null value and it should not be updated. It should not be updated, right? So these are the unique keys, primary key, etc., etc. Alternate keys, super keys. Next one is a foreign key. Foreign key. So this foreign key is a key which is used to relate one table with another table. So key used to relate one table with another table. So this will be done with the help of this foreign key. This will be done with the help of this foreign key. So a key will be considered as a foreign key which can be treated as a primary key in another table. So in one table the key will be a foreign key, in another table the same key will be considered as a primary key. So with that relation, with that particular foreign key we are going to relate two different tables. For example, let us consider the employee table. So employee ID, similarly employee name and some department ID, okay, in which department the employee belongs to. So this, let us have the short table, right? So in order to just understanding, we'll take only three attributes. So employee ID, employee name and department ID. And there is a one more table called a department. So DEPT ID, DEPT name and some projects, some project. So this is a one more table. This is a one more table. And here you can observe in this employee ID will be considered as a primary key, and in this table department ID can be considered as a primary key. You can see the same department ID, the same attribute is available in this particular employee table, but it is not a primary key here. So this will be considered as a foreign key. Foreign key. So the foreign key is an attribute of one table which is a primary key of another table. Which is a primary key of another table. So by using this foreign key, this rows will be related to this particular table. One table will be related to another table. So that is called a foreign key. So in one table it is a foreign key, in another table is a primary key. Right? So these are all the different types of keys used in DBMS. So first one is a super key, and from that super key we have to derive the candidate keys, and from that candidate keys we have to select the primary key, and apart from that primary key, all the remaining keys of a candidate keys will be considered as a alternate keys, and the unique identifier or a unique key, I mean the key which uniquely identifies the rows but accepting the null value will be considered as a unique key. And to relate one table with another, we are going to use a foreign key, right? So primary key of one table will be acting as a normal attribute, that means a foreign key as a in the another table, right? So these are all the introduction to all the keys, different types of keys which are available in our Dbms. So hope you understood this keys concept. So let us stop here, and if you are having any doubts regarding these keys, so feel free to post your doubts in the comment section. Definitely I will try to clarify all your doubts. If you really enjoyed my session, like my session, share my session with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching. Thank you very much.